Hello and welcome to That Interview Experience, where we chat all stuff interviews. We're helping 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds and maybe people older who are stepping into not just their first job, but we're also getting some feedback about people stepping into any job and that first interview experience and what it's like and the questions faced and what do you need to be have ready to be prepared for that. So I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, the splendiferous Helen Sanders. How are you, Helen?
Well, that's my favorite intro yet. Splendiferous. Spell it. I am splendiferous. As are you, Ash.
Thank you. And thank you. And we're joined today for this week's episode, because last week was really entertaining, wasn't it? We had
no pressure, Gabe,
from London, so that this was great. We've got Gabriel Flores, and I'm going to put this out there right now at the beginning of this. I love your shirt. I know we spoke about it off air, but I'm going public. I'm a big fan of the
It's now official for all time.
Official, exactly.
Yeah, it's on record.
Gabe, it's good to see you. And do you want to just tell the audience just a little bit about, what you do, who you are, just a brief introduction? And,
sure. So Ash and Helen, thank you both for having me here. It's a real pleasure to be here with the both of you. And the topic of our conversation is something I'm obviously very passionate about. You can see I'm from a company called Learning Without Borders. I co-founded that company with my business partner, Phyllis. We're based in London, but you can tell from my accent that I'm not originally from the UK. So I'm originally from Texas. I went to university in Massachusetts, started my career out in Boston, and then came to London with work. So I used to work in a business consultancy. But while I was working, I discovered that my real passion was helping people. So I left that and started coaching people into their jobs and in business. And I've been doing that since 2008. And then in 2011, me and my business partner co-founded Learning Without Borders. And what we do is we help people to get clarity of purpose, to use their work and their skills to make a difference in the world, to make an impact, or what we call a social impact. And we even run a module at the University of Nottingham for the students there to get practical skills. We call it the social impact game. And what they do is they learn project management skills, that get clarity about who they are and their own purpose. They learn how to make decisions. And then they do a social impact project with local organizations, businesses, and charities. And they make an impact. And then they showcase that impact at a public event at the end. So at the end, they're able to clearly articulate, not only to a public audience, but in their interviews, what difference they made and what skills they gained and how that helps them be successful in the job that they're applying for. So that's so this conversation that we're having is right on point with the kind of work that we do at Learning Without Borders.
I told you he was good, didn't I, Ash?
I know. Well, this is great. You are clearly a man who is passionate.
Yeah,
passionate about what you do, and that's
for sure.
Always lovely to see. I love it. So, look, Helen, do you want to kick us off with our first?
Yes, I mean, you've literally helped. I mean, it must be thousands of people over the course of your career. You and Phyllis as well. What is it that you look for in that initial interaction with younger people?
Yeah,
it could be anyone, but younger people. Let's focus there.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I'll tell you. I'll answer it in two ways. The first thing that there's one thing that we weren't looking for, but we discovered.
Nice.
People of our generation, when we were growing up, the reality is we were kind of trained to go get a job, make your money, work, and eventually you'll have enough money to do something you love. That's
right.
Kind of how that was the normal way to work. And I'm from the United States, and we were particularly set in that mindset. Yeah. But I came to the UK and figured out that people here were quite like that as well. Around our generation, right? But what we discovered when we started working with younger people, particularly with university level, with everything from fresh out of secondary school, all the way through to the graduate level. And what we discovered is today's generation is not satisfied going to work and being unfulfilled. Right? They want to make a difference. They want their job to have meaning from day zero.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're activists, they care about social causes, they want their money to work, they want to have enough money to get by and everything, but they will make a sacrifice on that point rather than get a job they hate just to make the money. That seems to be more common than it was when we were growing up. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I missed what you said.
No. And they'll make that same sacrifice to avoid working for a company that doesn't fit those values as well.
100%. 100%. Absolutely. So what we discovered is that that's a priority. And what we look for when we're working with younger people is that sense of passion, and that we have this concept that we introduce to people that they're unfamiliar with. If I may, I'll introduce you to this idea. And we call it the 3.0 purpose mindset. And there's just 3 levels of a mindset we could have. The first level, which we call 1.0, is sort of like this passenger mindset. You just get what you get. So you're always at the effect of the world around you. You know, it's my teacher's fault. It's my mom's fault. It's my boss's fault. It's my colleague's fault. It's the society's fault. All the reasons why things aren't going the way that I want them to go is out there and out of my control. That's sort of that 1.0 mentality. You're in the passenger seat of your life. That's how you feel, right? The 2.0 is being in the driver's seat. So when we're in the driver's seat, it's like, well, we get to say where we're going. So we're in the car, we're in the driving seat. You know, we take some initiative. We focus on our own career. We take a little bit of responsibility of what we're doing, right? And then that 2.0 is like that driver mentality. You're going to set goals and make it happen. And a lot of people get into that mindset, and that's a very good place to go. Now, here's the comedy of it. Most of the time, people in the passenger seat wonder why they get into a lot of car crashes, why a lot of things go wrong. Because in your life, you're in the driving seat, right? You're in the driving seat. So if you pretend you're in the passenger seat of a car, but you're actually in the driving seat, how's it going to go?
Yeah, that's not a good, that's a car crash waiting to happen.
That's a car crash. So if you've been noticing a lot of car crashes, you could look, am I 1.0 or 2.0 here? And then there's a 3.0. And the 3.0 mindset is this purpose-centric. You're actually the creator of your life. You're the designer of the world around you. You don't see, okay, I'm just going to kind of drive my car, but you're looking at, well, what is the difference I want to make? What's the impact I want to have in the world? You know, what's my big picture here? And you're using that to guide you and make your decisions. And that's that 3.0 mindset. And all the work that we do is about getting people to that purpose-centric mindset. And you talked about companies. Companies, if they're 1.0, they're profit-centric. They just want to make money.
Right.
If they're 2.0, they're thinking about taking care of their customers. But if they're 3.0, what they really care about is making a difference in the world, right? They'll care about the bigger issues. And so what we look for when we're working with young people is, where is your mind at the moment? And our goal is to help you get to 3.0, to get that sense that you create your life. You have not just a say in your life, but you're the full designer. It's all up to you. And you know, you have the weather, you have the patterns, you have to deal with the environment you're in, but it is all down to you. That's that mindset. And when we come from that place, a lot of new opportunities open up for us.
I've got this little voice over here. I'm not going to put a name to it, but we've all got one of these, where what I'm hearing there from a different generation, not necessarily us, is that's why Gen Z is so entitled, because they think they're allowed to set their own parameters. They think they've got a decision to be made and they can drive it. But everyone can. Every human being can. Everyone here, the 3 of us, can decide tomorrow, do you know what? We're going to set up a restaurant. We could. And we're going to design the restaurant the way we want. But if they're 20 odd or 17, how dare you think that way? How dare you think that you've got freedom of mind to go and set up your own restaurant tomorrow? No, that's just entitlement. You know, it's a real, okay.
The thing is, to that point, Helen, that I think that we are entitled to live fully. And it's pretending we're not.
But it's a swear word, isn't it? It's kind of like, oh, but they're so entitled. It's like, well, you're right. Aren't we all entitled to live the way we want to live with intention?
Here's the interesting point you make, though, Helen. I think, and a lot of young people, maybe this would be interesting. I'm only thinking about this dynamically because this is a conversation. So forgive me, I haven't thought this through. But what you say makes something come to mind for me. one of the things that you have to be careful of, let's say you are at 3.0 and you're purpose-centric and you're thinking about the difference you want to make in the world. And I think a lot of young people kind of really are in that space sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll speak to an adult, like you've highlighted. I'm an adult, excuse me, but you'll speak to an older person, you know, someone who's not, yeah, with that sort of voice that you described there. And that person is coming from a 1.0 sort of,
right,
maybe 2.0.
Yes.
Now, I mean, so hold that thought and imagine you were speaking French and I'm speaking English,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you are speaking to me in French and I'm speaking to you in English, the level of communication we're going to have effectively is going to be really small. We're not going to have a very good conversation. We're not going to get very far with each other. So if I am working with someone or interacting with someone who's at a different wavelength, who's at 1.0 or 2.0, and I'm at 3.0, I can't speak like a 3.0 to the 1.0 or 2.0 person.
Yeah.
You can't do that because you're just going to be talking cross purposes and create arguments, right? And seem, as you say, entitled. So what we need to do is we need to modulate our communications to where people are. So if I'm speaking to, say, somebody in my life who's a 1.0, I need to start where they are. If they're at that 1.0 survival, just make your money kind of mindset, then if I have this big vision 3.0 of the difference I want to make in the world, I have to just figure out how does that handle the money? Because that does need to get handled.
Right.
So I have that answer because that's all the person at the 1.0 cares about.
Right.
Right. So it's not that it's irrelevant to care about the money working or caring about, setting goals. Those are important things, but they're just not everything.
Yes.
Right. So if you're communicating to people who have a different priority set based on where they are in the 3.0 purpose mindset, right? They're at 1.0 or 2.0. You then need to tailor your communications, work out the details enough that you can talk to those people and they're satisfied with your answer, even though they don't care about your big picture, but you know your big picture.
Yeah. Okay. So if we take this into, let's say I'm 17, that's a long time ago now, but I can put myself there. So 17, I'm looking for a new job and society tells me that if you're hiring, I need to send your CV. I mean, I do it in my recruitment business, I do it differently, but you're looking for a CV. How do you get what you need to get from me through that medium, through the CV?
Oh, that's a really good question. Wow, fantastic. Okay, so another idea that we tell people, some of which you will know. But before I go to the idea, so I'm going to tell you about an idea I call STARI, which is an adaptation of something you would know as STAR, right? But I'm going to take one step back. Here's the first thing we need to do as young people, whatever age we are. We need to define and decide what it is we are about. What is important to you? What's a cause you care about? What's a subject you care about? What is something that matters to you? In particular, Helen, what problem do I care about solving in the world? Identify some problem that matters to you. And then what you need to do is create a miniature project, 4 to 6, maybe 8 weeks project, and get some friends together or get some other people around you together to tackle that project.
Prove it, illustrate it.
Yeah, it's right. Just to go do something about it, put something together, put a little plan together. In the social impact game, that's literally what we do, right? In a very structured way. But even if you're not doing a structured program like ours, you could just go find something you care about, create a project, right? You're 3.0, so you're in that creator mode, right? So create a project, right? Do something, make a difference, and see what that difference is, right? That's the first step. You have to do something. A lot of people think that their studies was enough. They think that, just even if they had jobs, right? Just showing up to work was enough. That's not going to have you stand out in an interview.
Right.
There are a lot, there are a lot of people who are looking for jobs right now. And what they really want to do is stand out.
Right.
And so if you want to stand out, you have to do something materially making an impact, making a difference that you could measure. So that's the first thing. You've got to do something like that, right?
Yeah, you have
Once
to.
you've done that and you're writing your CV, what we tell people now we don't write people's CVs, but we tell them how to write them, and then they go get a professional CV writer.
Right.
Personally, this is my opinion. You probably might have a different one, but my opinion is nobody should write their own CV ever. That's not.
I used to be a CV writer, so it kept me in. It kept me. Yeah.
You hire somebody like Helen to write your CV for you because she's done thousands of them and she knows what they're supposed to look like. Don't waste your time. You're just gonna. It's just gonna go pear-shaped. So don't.
Well, it's interesting because we had when Ellen was on.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, and she was talking about her son who was looking for some work for the summer, and she wrote his CV for him. And she was a little bit apologetic, maybe, but actually she was just very aware that if she'd left it to him, it would have missed a lot of stuff that he'd taken for granted. And by her writing it, she was able to say, well, look, babysitting actually at 14 years old and feeding a toddler, that's quite a big deal. And if you don't have anything else at 16 years old, then we need to talk about everything that's involved in that. The cake making, the other one was the cake making
and candle making. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Selling them and finding an audience and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think that's
So
when I used to write CVs.
If you're
go on.
Oh no. So obviously, if you're a young person who, just get someone who's got more experience to do that is the point, right? Don't try and do it yourself. If you're a professional out in the, if we happen to have a mom or dad that's changing jobs listening to this show right now, then you don't write your CV. You go get a Helen to write your CV. Okay.
Right.
So that's the point. If you're a young person, you could probably have your parents do it because they've at least written more CVs than you have. Right.
Yeah.
But in any case. You go ahead, please.
The other thing is that CV is your marketing document, and whether you're British, where we do downplay things a little bit, or American, because I'm American as well, and I've written tons of CVs for American chief execs.
Yeah.
If once you get your CV back, you're slightly embarrassed about how good you sound, then you've pitched it right.
Yeah.
That's the key thing. You need to be slightly. If it's way over and you're like, I don't even recognize that person, then you're out of the ball game. But if you're slightly embarrassed about how good your parent has made you sound on your resume or CV, then you're probably about right, because then you'll inch yourself up to that when you turn up to an interview. So here's the thing then, Gabe.
So I was going to answer your question because I haven't answered that yet.
Yeah, go for it.
So just to recap where we got to, right? So the first step was do something that makes a measurable difference of some kind that you can talk about on your CV. Secondly, get someone who has experience writing a CV to do it for you, right? And contribute towards it. Then the third step is, how do you help that person write your CV? This is the part you can do. So we talk about this concept called STARI, right? So that's an acronym. The acronym is STARI.
I wrote Y down. I was trying to get ahead of the game.
Starry-eyed lover.
STARI, and I use the when we're talking about this, I use the starry emoji with the starry eyes, to represent this idea. Okay, so STARI. So the first one is situation. You describe. So what you do is, if you're a young person, what you do is you make this document, right? You write a document, and all you do is you STARI everything you've ever done. So you STARI your projects you did at school. You STARI your work, the jobs you've had, the babysitting jobs, everything you've done, you STARI it. So just like a little project, you STARI each one. You do this process for each one, and you do it all the way through everything you've ever done. And then you hand that document over to the person who's going to write your CV, because they have everything that you think you want to say and all the details, so they could write it for you. Okay. So now let me tell you what the acronyms mean. So S means situation. What was going on and why did it matter? That situation. What was going on? Why did it matter? Then we have task. Task is, what were you asked to do? What were you expected to do? What was your assignment? That's task, T. A is action. What did you actually do? Now, the cool thing about A, action, is that you can showcase what you did that was above and beyond, or took initiative on what was originally asked. Okay, so that's A. Then R was the results you produced.
Yes.
What are the measurable results
Yep.
that you produced with whatever project you were working on or whatever you were doing, the results, okay? That's also where you can say, you know, anecdotal things. In other words, you know, the parent I was babysitting for said X, right? So you can put that under R, results, right? So both hard results, which are measurable things, numbers, and soft results, which are things people said about you or things people felt or experienced, okay? That's R. But the one that is new for people who haven't done the social impact game is I, and that's impact, hence social impact game. It's all about impact. And this is where I think a lot of people have the opportunity to showcase what the difference they really can make. Impact is where you show the result. So let's say I run a project and we run an event and there's like 500 people at the event. Right? Okay, that's the result. Hey, you had 500 people. But the I is the so what.
Yes.
The impact is the so what you had 500 people there. Why does that matter? And how does that show that you solve the problem that you highlighted in S in the situation? Right?
Absolutely
It's the link. The impact is the link. And if you can do that, anyone who's listening to this podcast right now, if you can showcase the impact you made with what you did, every manager will be like, oh, wow, this guy knows what they're doing. This gal understands. This person really gets it. They bring that really high level thinking. That's what they're going to hire. Whether you got the direct experience or not, that may be flexible about that. But my goodness, they got the mindset that I'm looking for. And that's how you prove you're that 3.0 mindset.
And the key thing there, two things. So if you have someone who is a professional CV writer, they should be asking you those questions anyway. You shouldn't necessarily need to do that, but the prep is good. And if I'm 17 and want to go through that process, but actually the process of sitting down and writing it is too overwhelming, get your phone and just record yourself talking through that acronym of STARI. And then that can produce the text. What you're describing there is what I class as an impact CV. Most people in the UK, Europe is a little bit different because they've got different contexts around what, you know, a German CV is 14 pages long because you have to write everything on. In the UK and in the US, they're 1 or 2 pages. And most people have a job description CV. But if I'm 17, I haven't had enough jobs to put on there to fill it out.
To describe.
So have an impact CV. So something like if you are 18, 19 and you've set up a book club with your friends, great. Do the STARI process for that and put that on your CV because you set it up. What was the impact? What happened? Well, it reduced the isolation during the pandemic. Brilliant. Write that on there.
Yeah. And even if you're writing a 1-page CV or a 2-page CV here in the UK, I've had my clients bring that information to CV writers and they include the key points. All that can be included in there. Because of course, you know, the old experience, you just make it really skinny. And the later experience where you really can showcase that impact.
You beef it up.
Because the reality, you know, but aside from keyword searches and stuff, getting through the machine, right? When someone actually picks it up, all the CVs look the same until you do something like that. And people just don't do that. And even a lot of CV writers don't think like that because they're not 3.0 thinkers like yourself.
Right.
Helen.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. They're very 2.0. They get the job done. They set the goals. They cover all the bases. They get it, you know. But 3.0 is a whole nother level of thinking that can be conveyed in the same number of words. Yeah.
So I'm a little afraid to ask this question, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it anyway.
I'm glad you're asking it.
So we're going to cut, because especially in it, there's just so much in here. We could run this for hours, but we have a time limit on it. So I'm going to ask a question because I think it's a really important one. What is, let's cut right down to the chase. You've had your interview. I think we both really understand that for you, it's very much about, you know, the change that people want to make in the world and how they can, you know, impact something greater than themselves. So what is your favorite interview question?
Right. So I think I'm gonna mention 2 points there. The first one being in the interview, if you're going to an interview, when we talk to people about the jobs that they're applying for, in your preparation, think carefully about your experience, and also think carefully, why does that job exist? Why does that post exist? Why does that company exist? And how does what my experience is help me to help them achieve what they're up to?
Nice.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you're preparing, think in that way, because do the work for the manager or the interviewer, that help them connect the dots between your past and your experience and what they're trying to accomplish. That's the key thing. And so normally when I'm speaking to someone and I'm trying to assess their suitability for what we do, I first try to understand, you know, what do you know about what we do and why we do it? And then why do you think you will be great in this role? But what I'm really asking, and what I'm really hoping their answer is, what their experience is and how their experience will help us make the impact that we as a company want to make. Right? And that role is designed for a particular function. So they need to understand and showcase that understanding of why that role exists, or ask me those questions. Like, you might not know that, right? You might not know, why does this job exist? Ask the interviewer, say, so before we get into it, help me on, you know, because you have that kind of dialogue at the beginning. You know, before we get too deep into this, tell me, what is this? Why was this role created? And what is it trying to accomplish? Ask the question if it's not clear in the job description that they put out there, right? Ask what the business reason for it is. Ask for what's the impact it's supposed to make. What's the social impact it wants to make? Ask these questions if they're not already present and people are like, oh my God, you know, they might not have thought about it before, right? But then
you'd hope they had.
You'd hope so.
But it's sometimes not, right? You'd be surprised.
Absolutely.
And what then that you do as the person who's interviewing is you connect your history to that purpose, right? You connect. When you draw those connections, you become the obvious choice if indeed you are the right person for that role. And remember, if you don't get the role, if you do everything we've been talking about in these podcasts and you don't get the role, that's good. It means it wasn't right for you.
Correct. That's exactly how I feel.
Unhappy there. It's okay you didn't get that role. That's a really good thing. Don't feel depressed or upset about it. If you do a great interview, right, then and it doesn't work out that you're hired, that's good. It means that they knew for sure that you're not a fit, and therefore you'd have been unhappy there, and they did you a service. So go to the next one.
And the one thing that comes up for me there around asking those questions is, if you are 17, 18 and don't have the confidence to ask that, then later on when you are asked, do you have any questions? Because you were saying ask at the beginning or ask close to the beginning of the meeting. If you are asked, or you should be asked, do you have any questions? The way that you can phrase it, if you lack a bit of confidence, is, okay, imagine I've got the job and I've been here 3 months. What's the impact I will have had on your team or on your customers? And then you can, that helps as well. You may not necessarily be connecting things, but you're showing that you're thinking in a forward, you know, in a growth mindset, basically. So that's what came up for me.
3.0 thinking. There we go, Helen. Great work there. Yeah, love that advice.
I reckon the three of us could just chat for about 3 hours. I don't know if that's such a good idea, but but thank you so much, Gabe. You're an absolute star.
It's a real joy. Thank you both for having me here. It's a real pleasure, Ash and Helen, to be here, and you know, reach out to us if you guys need anything. It's a real joy. It's been a pleasure being your guest.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming on. Thank you for giving up your time.